My name is Frank Delisio. I served 25 years with the ATF, infiltrating outlaw motorcycle clubs and running some of the agency's toughest undercover operations. And this is how crime works. The Hells Angels have no idea how close they came to getting in an all-out war they weren't ready for, because the Aryan Brotherhood were building it. They were going, when are we going to start killing these guys? When are we going to start taking over the territory? They're ready to go. So when I first got hired on by ATF, I was 24 years old. I report to Columbus, Ohio. At that time, ATF was very heavily steeped in doing undercover work. I rode motorcycles and mini bikes and dirt bikes my whole life, right? I had an informant who had been in this club. The brothers, my informant was the president at this time. So he kind of educated me on what this smaller club, the brothers, was all about and who was in charge and the hierarchy of it. It's no different than if you look at any other criminal organization. We started at one point just being on the outside to actually becoming members. I mean, our acceptance was based on our personalities. We were in there to try to get in as close to as many clubs as possible, to the outsiders, phantoms, Vietnam vets. There were all kind of clubs that we got into because we had that patch and because we had longevity with some of the members who were vouching for us as members, which gives you a lot of instant credibility amongst other patches, and especially in the criminal world. And that case ran about 3.5 years. I mean, everybody always talks about how the outlaw motorcycle clubs are structured after the original mafia, where you have bosses, you have underbosses, and then you have soldiers. It's just like that. There's elections, it's all political power play. Who's the shot caller, right? Who's gonna be making the calls? You follow like sheep. The brothers, at that time I was the warlord or sergeant at arms. Sergeant at arms is there to keep peace within the club. They handle business within the club in times of war. There were a couple times where members would get out of line that you'd have to whack them. I mean, you'd have to give them a little. I never punched anybody, but slapping people is a good attention getter. Now, I will tell you that when you do these kind of undercover things, it happens where there is violence, where there are fights. Things happen, and people take notice of you and how you handle yourself, and do they really want to, go at you. I'm not saying I'm the toughest guy in the world. I've got as good as I gave, but however, I survived it, you know what I mean? The brothers, they were always at war with the Outlaws, where there had been shootings and killings, right? You'll see in these clubhouses that it's juvenile. I mean, we used to have to patch our clubhouse because, at the witching hour, which is never good, between 2 and 3 a.m., we'd have members that would just pull out guns and just fire them in the clubhouse through the walls. Who knew where the bullets went? And the next day, you got probates or prospects outside patching the holes because the sunlight's coming through. I mean, ridiculous crap. So when my case concluded in Ohio, I was told I had to move because there were some threats. I don't really think they were amounted to much, but ATF being ATF, they offered me in 4 cities. Well, during the brothers' case, we had made a trek out to Las Vegas and bought a couple pounds of meth out there. I liked Vegas. My wife, she's a gamer. I said, "What do you think about going to Vegas?" She goes, "Well, that sounds good." So I had just finished my other investigation and only been out 6 months after 3.5 years. So I go out there, I move my informants out there, we get a house, we got everything set up. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police, we were working with Metro. Jack Roberts, big Irishman. He grew up in the days of the mob out there. He's a fantastic guy. He goes, "Now, I'm guaranteeing you," he goes, "if you go to Sharkey, who was a member, if you go to his tattoo shop, inevitably he will walk out and recruit you because of the way you guys look and the way you are." So we drive down there, and I told my informant, Tony, I said, "I'm not getting a tattoo. You're getting a tattoo." And he didn't care. He old school biker, big guy. So we go in there, and he sits down, and he's getting probably one of the worst tattoos I've ever seen in my life. But he's a champ. He's getting it. Sharky walks out from the back, and he just starts asking us questions, like where we're from, and we're telling him our story. So he goes to the back, and he comes out with his Vagos colors, and he goes, "Do you guys know what these are?" And of course we knew what they were, but of course we weren't going to give him that. We're going to go, "No, what's that?" He goes, "The Vagos." He goes, "Well, we own Vegas. They used to have a big green pin on the back of their vest, and that's what it meant. He goes, what are you guys thinking about maybe coming around? Come to this house on Tuesday. Sharky brings us into the house, and there's like 10 of them in there. And it was like, all right, you guys can hang around, which means, okay, start coming to meetings, you go stand with Prospect out there and watch the bikes, and you start showing you're worthy to be around us great Vagos. Yeah, I mean, our game was always drugs, you know, because we'd already been buying drugs off of some of the members, and we were moving guns back, whatever we can get our hands on. You know, we were commodity brokers of whatever it could be. You know, that we had ties back in the Midwest with some criminal organizations, stuff like that. So I remember one time we were over in LA, and they decided that they were going to go hunt Mongols in the hills. They start going bar to bar to bar looking for them, and if they catch them, they're going to hopefully just beat them up, but it's ended up in shootings, stabbings, and all that other kind of stuff. So we also had an incident. We go back to the one member's house, and they're like, okay, we got to go collect some money. They go, and you guys are going to come with us. And we drive to this trailer park. They rip the door off and there's other trailers around. They rip the door off, and we go in there. They grab the guy, and they just start beating the shit out of him. Then it's like, are there any kids in here? And yeah, there's 3 in the back bedroom. And I'm looking at Tony going, oh man. And I look at him and I go, I don't give a shit what happens. Nobody touches those kids. So we go in the back, and there's like a 3, a 4-year-old, and maybe a 7-year-old. And I'm telling Tony, I said, no matter what, I go, you put yourself between these kids. I go, I'm going to put myself between you and the kids. I have a gun. They're loading motorcycle parts. They're taking his dope, his money. This went on for about an hour and a half. This dude's screaming. They're screaming, yelling. You'd have thought somebody would call the police. Nobody ever called anybody. We get back in the car. I mean, obviously, it's great evidence of a home invasion, kidnapping, and everything. That was one of the major charges that we ended up convicting those members on. But it was stuff like that it was like, what do you do? I go, what do you do at 3 o'clock in the morning? Am I supposed to call my boss and say, listen, we're going on a home invasion. I have your authority? A lot of times before these cases, you get the left and the right rail. You have meetings with the U.S. attorneys, with the prosecutor's office, and you talk about stuff that could possibly happen with their understanding that it probably will happen. Just report it the next day and we'll deal with it. Obviously, if somebody gets killed, different. But crimes of violence, acts of violence, they understand are going to happen. So the next day I went in and I reported it. And then, you know, they start doing a separate investigation on that. Unfortunately, there are a lot of military active and veterans that are affiliated with a lot of these bigger clubs. And, you know, they're retired or inactive guys. I mean, it's another brotherhood for them. It's excitement. And then unfortunately, some of them end up getting caught up in the criminal activity and they end up losing everything. So we were in probably, I don't know, 1.5 years into the Vagos case. What happened was we were all supposed to get our patch at the same time, meaning myself, my informant, and Kaz, my buddy Kaz. Darren Kozlowski, he's another ATF agent who is working the Hollywood chapter. So he ends up getting his patch. We were supposed to get our patch the following week, Tony and I, our full patches. Well, let me preface. Early on, Kaz, his informant who was bringing him in, gets T-boned and killed on a motorcycle. Kaz had given him a business card that he had in his wallet and stuff like that. But it was a business card from when he worked in Milwaukee before he transferred to LA. Well, this all comes back around to play because the informant's dead, nobody's doing anything. In hindsight, Kaz knows he should not have used the name Kaz in the investigation. The Vagos, well, they start checking around, and it's Darren Kozlowski, okay, Kaz, ATF, Long Beach. So he was out doing something, and he comes back to his house, and they're at his house. So they go inside and they start questioning about where he'd been, what he'd been doing. And he's lying to them straight out. So they take his patch and they leave. He calls me and tells me what happened. So now it's like, oh, okay. Well, in the meantime, I hang up with him. I get another phone call from the president for the Vagos. And he starts off the conversation with, we have a problem. Your buddy, Kaz, he's an ATF agent. I go, I'm like, get out of here. Blah. I've known that guy. He goes, no. I go, what are you going to do? He goes, we're going to kill him. He goes, and we think he followed you out here to work you. And when he saw you doing this, he got involved with the Vagos too, to then just try to work it all. I go, and I'm like, I'm acting all distraught and whatnot. And so I'm going, man, I go, that's kind of harsh, man. I go, why don't you just, let's see. He goes, well, one of the reasons I'm calling you is to see how much damage does he have on you. And at that point, the light bulb goes off, because in my mind, we're still good. We can continue on this case, right? Because they're looking at him, not looking at us, because if they were looking at us, they would have never called us to tell us about him. I go, you know what, this could be problematic for us too. I go, we may have to go dark for a while, Tony and I. I said, so I go, I'll call you back, let you know what's up. Hang up the phone, and of course, I'm sitting there looking at the informant. I go, I got to report this. So of course, I call ATF. We had to shut our stuff down right away, but lucky we had our case pretty much built up to then, which allowed us to do what we needed to do as far as arresting and search warrants and stuff. And we just got on our bikes and took off, and we closed our house down in that day, and we're out. Killing an ATF agent, is it a smart move on their part? Is it going to bring a lot of heat? Absolutely it is. But in their mind, they think, they bring in somebody from the outside, they have them do it, and it doesn't tie back to them. So they have an annual motorcycle rally event down in Laughlin, right, in Nevada. When they have this, you get tens of thousands of bikers that, descend on this. And the two predominant clubs that descend on it, it used to be a Hells Angels event. Vagos go down there, the Mongols show up, right? And then it just kicks off, man. And there's some stabbing, and it all gets captured on tape. You never seen anything like that where, you just got this mass chaos in a casino where there's thousands of people, bullets flying, knives flying, people getting beat up. Finally, police descend upon it. They lock it all down. You don't normally have these type of incidents that happen in a public place. However, you have the Hellraiser's Ball where the Hells Angels and the Pagans went at it in a big open platform. You got to show up large. You got to show up at an event where people are going to see. Make it loud, meaning make sure everybody sees it. And they have members that are willing to go to prison for it. They don't care because they're heroes to the club. Down in North Carolina, outside of Fayetteville, you had that shooting that happened at the gas station. I mean, it's getting more overt where they're caring less about who sees. So part of, these investigations, every now and again, you got to come up with some thinking outside the box. So in Operation Black Biscuit, when Jay Dobbins started his initial trek down the road to the Hells Angels, they come up with an idea, let's start a chapter in Arizona. Solo Angels got along with the Hells Angels, so with their permission, they started a chapter of Solo Angels. Well, that chapter consisted of an informant and all law enforcement. And the whole idea was to see how close, how much they can get. And it's a club that had respect from the Hells Angels down in Mexico that they were aware of and they knew. So they needed some more members to come in from the outside to show that the club was bigger than it was and expanded in the United States. We went down for like 2.5 weeks. We brought a bunch of guys in. Fluff and stuff is basically what we were. So, while we were there, we did some more street theater. Then I get into a blue on blue street theater where I bring them along as either bodyguards or what have you. And I say, you guys are my protection. And then what happens is I'm sitting in a room, I got a bunch of money, or I have a bunch of dope, they bring in a bunch of money, vice versa, and we make the transfer. And they leave, and then we leave, and these guys, what did they just see? They saw a bunch of drugs and a bunch of money come and go, kind of like they do. And in their mind, okay, cops don't do this shit. And it's all theater, it's all play acting. I got a call from Tom Doyle with East Lake Police Department while I was a supervisor in Youngstown, talking about an opportunity with some informants to possibly take a run at the Aryan Brotherhood and the Hells Angels up in the Cleveland area. Well, the whole purpose of this investigation was two-pronged. We were going after the Aryan Brotherhood and we were going after the Hells Angels. It kind of widened on the gap where we were able to make some inroads into the Pagans and the Outlaws. So if you look at the Aryan Brotherhood, in my experience in dealing with them for over 2 years, they're a prison-based club. So if you're Aryan Brotherhood in prison, it's all white is right, power, wave power, all, everything that goes along with that. Outside, our experience has been, we deal with everybody. The color is green. We were dealing with Mexican mafia, we were dealing with, black gangsters. As long as there was a profit to be made, it was all about making money. So, is the racial aspect of it still there? Yes, but it doesn't sit as prominent because it's all about making the deal, making the money. The Aryan Brotherhood case was just supposed to be like, hey, we're going to go after this guy, Jim Bloomquist, who went by AJ for Aryan Jim. He was manufacturing machine guns. So our informant said, I can get you close to him. He'll make you machine guns if you want. He goes, well, I told him that you had been to prison with my dad and your name's Junkyard. And I'm like sitting there going, oh, and what else? And he goes, did you guys used to wrestle bears in bars? I go, where are you coming up with this? 3 hours later, we go meet with this guy. And unfortunately for me, we hit it off. So we're talking, and the next thing we start talking about the machine guns. And he had a construction company called AB Construction. And what he would do is any guys that were getting out in Northeast Ohio, he would sponsor them for a job, which they never came to. So he could put them on the books as if they were working. About a week later, come back, he gives us these 3 machine guns. He was making Stens. They were kits that he put together. They looked like they just come off the manufacturer. I mean, they were all powder coated, beautiful. I go back and I said, well, let's see if you could make more, because we're trying to track down where he's doing it. And we had a pretty good idea he was doing it in his house or in his warehouse. Well, I go, well, let's go for a big number. So I said 10. And then the whole thing changed from, making machine guns to motorcycles. And he asked us if we ride motorcycles, and it's yeah. And he goes, which means we could start a club. We want to open up the first official Aryan Brotherhood motorcycle club. He goes, and we're going to start it here. He goes, and if it works, the intent is to spread it as quick as possible. I go, what are we going to call this club? He goes, Order of Blood. Well, when Hitler went to prison, and all his officers, when they got out, he gave them the medal, was called Blood, Order of. In our backstopping and everything, all of us had been to prison. Different prisons, right? So we could talk intelligently about what was going on in prison, which ended up coming up actually and saving our butts in a few occasions. We had our patches made, but then on the front of the patch, there was a support your local Aryan Brotherhood with a big swastika. See, these guys make no sense. It was just absolutely ridiculous. I asked AJ, I go, what's our purpose? He goes, our purpose is we want to take over Cleveland, Northeast Ohio. Eventually, we want to take out the Angels. We want to run them out. We want to control everything in Northeast Ohio. Now, there are clubs that are affiliated with the Aryan Nation. They're out there. There are some in California that are affiliated, but for them to try to launch something on a national level, yes, unheard of. AJ then says, why don't we go to this bar in East Lake? He goes, just as kind of, you bring your guys, I'll bring my guys. I have no idea who he's bringing, because up until this point, it's just him and the informant. He shows up with 3 players. We go in there, we're meeting, we're talking to him. We leave. So, and now we're going to go debrief after everybody separates away. So Tom Doyle goes, you guys even know who you met with? We're like, no idea. I know one guy was named JB, one guy was named Paulie, and the other one was David. Because we didn't have any background information on any of these guys. So they proceed to tell us about David Snow being, he was the man for the Aryan Brotherhood for the state of Ohio. JB had been down for 25 years for prison, and AJ had been in jail for robbery and a couple other things. So we got criminal, violent drug traffickers, right, already in their past. For ATF, the more violent, the more criminal you were, the more guns you had, the better target you were for us. Well, these guys, you can't get any more violent. And they're telling us during the meetings, and there's many more like us that we will bring to the club. So we launched this investigation, full-blown now. I mean, we've got headquarters support, we've got our undercover branch support, we've got everything involved now, building everything. April 20th is our coming out date because it's Hitler's birthday. So this is the day they wanted to launch. So we take this group photo. A couple weeks later is going to be like our coming out party, so it was a big deal. So we go and set up a tent, and it has all of our support gear, support your Order of Blood, and it has the big Thunderbolts. So for a few of us, they said, you guys can wear the brand, which we did. we see these guys approaching the tent, and all of a sudden they start smiling. Hey, happy your brothers are here. It's the Ku Klux Klan, a couple Night Hawks and other members, and they're just so happy to see us. Once we got into the, this whole Aryan Brotherhood club, it did open up a lot of opportunities for us because one, we formed bonds with more of the support club because we would go to all their functions where, you go to events, club members are supposed to go up and pay homage and respect to the predominant club. Well, that started to change where when they would come into events, they'd come pay homage to us before they would go to the Hells Angels. And that kind of started a rift. Cleveland started to dislike us a lot. As time progressed, the club grew. So within the hierarchy of outlaw motorcycle gangs, you have what's known as support or puppet clubs. They only exist because the predominant club in that area allows them to exist. And what happens is they'll have coalition meetings where these other clubs, like whoever the predominant club is, will host it at different clubhouses. And they sit up in the front, and all the other clubs that show up sit out in the galley, and they talk about things. And I can only tell you this because I've been to so many Hells Angels ones. That's how they extorted all these clubs. They made them buy tickets to their events and support them that way. So it was instant, and if they didn't, then they'd pull their patch. Puppet and feeder clubs, a lot of times if there's big events, they're the ones that they make stand out and do all the guard duty. They'll watch the bikes, they'll do security for them. A lot of the puppet clubs are also used for some of the criminal activity because everybody's looking at the big club. So they have members that are in these support clubs that are actually doing the dirt. We were traveling multi-states and we got embedded with a bunch from the Outlaws. And as we grew, people took notice. We had criminals that were operating, especially the young ones. They would come and knock on the door. Hey, is anybody interested in buying any drugs or guns? I mean, we had that whole side piece going. So all the crooks were figuring, if you're part of the Aryan Brotherhood, there's no way you're gonna be a cop, and we could do whatever we want with you, which was true, and we took great advantage of that. We were bringing in a lot of agents and some females. The women that we brought in, which they're great. I mean, they don't get enough accolades. I had one that was, my baby's mama, and then the other girls we were saying were mules for us. They were hauling our contraband. So our girls became great gatherers of information for us. Because the women, they were telling everything about their old men. With bikers, I mean, now you're talking old school versus new school bikers. I mean, when I was in, you had a lot of old school mentality. I mean, the depravity. If you do certain acts with women, you get a wing, color, it designates what that is. From having sex with a dead person to having sex with a cop, having sex with somebody who has an STD. I mean, it's just crazy. When you're in there, you walk a fine line, and you don't participate, but it's just, from watching guys smoking dope with their 7-8-year-old sons. Age 8, he had a little kid. His name was, they did him a favor. They named him Dietrich Adolf. Just the amount of stuff that you would see like that, it does challenge your sense of morals, in a sense of, what's right or wrong, and what your job is, but you can't do anything about it right now. That's that gets problematic sometimes. Once we got into the, this whole Aryan Brotherhood club, it did open up a lot of opportunities for us because one, the name, the club, the brand in and of itself is criminal, period. It's not like when we would work some of these other investigations with outlaw motorcycle clubs where, okay, I gotta have a job, I gotta make myself look real, I gotta do this. Well, when you're dealing with the Aryan Brotherhood, yeah, well, by nature we're criminal. Did we have shell companies set up, to make us look legit, appear legit? Yeah. So we didn't have to show the club or anybody else that we had jobs and we had this. Didn't have to do that. How the Aryan Brotherhood in Ohio came to be, the founding member, David Snow, had served time in Arizona. He brought it back to the state of Ohio. David Snow, he shot a guy in prison. David stabbed several people. This guy should have been in prison for life. They kept running it concurrent, so he never got any more time. David gets out, and he starts to be around us, and he sees what's going on. Everybody did stuff for David. So he had a whole entourage that did stuff for him. we took care of David. David ended up becoming one of our biggest allies in the way our case was going, because we started having problems with some of the other AB members just because they wanted power. Now, how it was run, we ran it like a true AB council. So we'd come together, you know, once a month, 6 of us, and we would talk about the club and what we were doing, what was going on, and, you know, what was the way forward. Well, we had an incident where one of our agents, he put out some information that did not sound right to them. So they called him on it, and they called me on it, to the point we had to have a meeting. And so we're having it at the house, and so there was like 6 or 7 of us, and they come up with 5 guys, and they're all wearing coats, and their hands are all in their pocket. And Paulie, who was the security guy, and JB come in, and they're like, they were challenging one of our undercovers and some stuff that he had said who wasn't there. I knew Paulie from a prior life when I was doing my brother's case, but he didn't recognize me because I had that big bushy beard and I was a little heavier then. So he's sitting there, he stands up, and he's like, you know, back in the late 90s, I used to hang around with a club called the Brothers, and these 2 ATF guys come in there, and they took the whole day, arrested, blah, blah, blah. He's going on and on and on. And he's looking around, and now I could see our guys are getting antsy, and I'm watching the AB guys, and they're getting antsy because he goes, and you know, that guy, and everybody was 100% certain that he was going to point around and point to me and go, is him. And he goes, and he turns around, he goes, and that guy was it, and he didn't say that. You know, I'm seeing everybody's kind of coming out of their seat. They're going for their guns because this is going to have a bloodbath in our house. Because if it had started, it would have been, that's what it would have been. And then he goes on, and I stood up because now I am legitimately pissed. Like, I've had it. You know, we've been doing this. I'm sick of everything. And I sit up and I said, Paulie, shut the F up. I go, you are a big problem. I go, you know what? And I'm looking at JB now. I go, if he opens his mouth one more time, I'm going to kill him right here. And JB looks at him and says, Paulie, shut up. I go, I'm tired of this. Either we're in it together or we're not. This comes up one more time, we're going our separate ways, and you guys do your thing and we'll do ours. You know, you're in this, and it's every day grind, grind, grind. I'm tired of it. So David Snow comes out. He goes, Junkyard, I like your style. He goes, I'm changing chapters. He goes, I want to be a part of your chapter, not that one down there. So we were at an event with the Hells Angels. AJ decided he was going to go do a burnout in one of the Hells Angels bar on the east side of Cleveland. He goes in with a motorcycle and does a burnout with burning the rubber off the wheel inside the bar. Well, they didn't like that too much. So they're having this event, and we knew it was going to be chaos. So we had about 12 guys with us at the time, both AB and law enforcement. They were part of our club. So AJ showed up because the intent was we're going to pull his patch. He's out because he's causing too much trouble because AJ can't just behave himself. We show up at this Speedway motor ground, and as we're riding in, there's Hells Angels posted all over the place. And it's like, okay, this is interesting. And this is kind of like our first experience, like going to a coalition meeting as well. So we pull in, and we're sitting there, and there's 2 Hells Angels that are off to the side, and they're looking at us. So myself and JB walk over to talk to them, and they're right away, we're going to kick AJ's ass, we're going to take his cut, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, right? David stayed back with AJ. So JB steps up and goes, you guys ain't touching our guy. I go, if there's anybody going to hand any punishment down, it's going to be us, and you're not taking his cut. That's going to be a problem. We walk over to David Snow. He goes, you go back there and tell them that we'll handle our problems, but if they touch AJ, I'm going to have every Hells Angel in the United States greenlit before the day is over. And David's serious. When he talks and he says stuff like that, you got to believe he's telling you the truth because he's done planned. He goes, I could do that. I could make it happen. We can get to him. I'm like, well, okay, that's pretty profound. I go, let's see how this is received. So we walk back over there, and JB, he goes, all right, here's how this is going down. We're going to take care of the problem. We're going to take AJ out of our club. He's no more. He's going to be blackballed. No contact. And they looked at David, and they're like, all right, all right. So then they take us, now we're going down to this coalition, right, meeting. At this point, it was the Hells Angels and all the little subservient puppet support clubs. So we bring like 7 or 8 guys, right? There's probably 10 clubs there. And of course, they open up the meeting, and it's like, okay, we got a new club, Order of Blood. Then they start piping up. You guys said there weren't going to be any more new clubs, you know, what, blah, blah, blah. And their response was, shut the F up. They're here. They're not going anywhere, okay? And that was all we heard of there. So the meeting goes on for like another, I don't know, 20 minutes. And they go, okay, it's over. Well, while this thing is wrapping up, they said, hey, you guys are in the, you know, the Order of Blood. Can you hang back? We want to talk to you. So we're looking over, and there's a pickup truck there, an old pickup truck. And one of the prospects, he's in the truck, and there's a shotgun on the seat. He's kind of like pointing it towards us. He's putting on these, what appear to be black gloves. And like, now everybody else is left but us and these Hells Angels, and they're standing in front of us. So I'm looking at some of the guys and go, man, we got to close ranks fast. So we closed ranks right up on the Hells Angels. We figure if he's going to shoot, he's going to hit them, you know. So he ain't going to do that. So now we're back to this whole, you know, the burnout, how we're going to resolve this, right? Their idea is, hey, we want you to go down to the bar and apologize. Send a couple of your guys down here and apologize to the bar owner. So the agreement was, okay, all right, we'll send a couple guys down. I'm walking up, still talking to JB. And I go, did you see the shotgun over there? He goes, yeah, I saw it. I go, yeah, I talked to the guys real quick. I said, man, if they'd have blasted, I go, we were going to kill them, and then we were going to just drop our cuts and go. JB looks at me and he goes, when were you going to tell me? I go, what do you mean? I go, listen, man. He goes, I'm okay with smoking these dudes. He goes, but you got to let us know that this is what's going to be happening so we're all on the same page. I go, so no problem killing them? He goes, no. He goes, but we need to know. I go, right on. So they had some guys in from Las Vegas and I think Minnesota and some other places. One of the Hells Angels from Las Vegas walks over and he goes, it's different. And I go, what do you mean different? He goes, usually clubs come in here and they kiss our ass. You guys ain't them. I go, no, not by a long shot. He goes, I respect that. David Snow, now he starts going into the business aspect of the AB. How they're using P.O. boxes where they're shipping money in. People are picking the money up. They're having money mailed to the P.O. boxes. Then they, you know, well, because one of the big thing is they recruit guards on the inside, right, that are doing all their deliveries. So either the guards are bringing in the money, the guards are bringing in the dope. You know, they do have some carriers that'll come in and visit, but most of it is prison-based. He goes, if you're on the outside and you're part of the AB, he goes, if you stay in good standing, he goes, you're expected to kick up. So if you're out here and you're running a crew, you're expected to kick up at least 10% of what you're getting back that goes into the prison. Our stuff was, we were buying dope, we were buying guns, explosives. If it was for sale, we bought it. The motorcycle clubs were selling dope, they were selling guns. So amongst ourselves, but then we would use those guys for, if we were going to do a bigger deal or we needed sometimes street theater, if we wanted to rope them in with the guns, because they would sell guns. David Snow sold us a gun, but a lot of the guys held on to their guns because either they didn't want to give them up or they knew that the gun was going to cause them more problems than the drugs. So how did we find out if they have a gun? Through street theater, we drag them out, trying to help us on drug buys or any kind of nefarious activity that we're doing so they could, hey, we have a gun, which we could later go back and get. It was all about just pursuing money and kicking it up. We dispersed money amongst everybody. Like with David and them, sometimes we would give them guys money as kind of a show of, you know, whatever. For what we were doing, it wasn't the true, like, hey, we're a crew of Aryan Brotherhood guys out here running, you know, pounds and pounds of meth or you know, we weren't distributors because we couldn't be distributors. We had to be buyers. The Aryan Brotherhood is more security conscious than probably most. You have to be careful what type of recording or transmitting equipment that you're wearing. A lot of times we didn't wear any because we had cameras that were stationary, or we just recorded it. We would do whatever we were doing, and then we were writing reports immediately to recapture what just happened. The Pagans ended up taking a bigger piece of the pie that was operating in Western Pennsylvania and Ohio. The Pagans were the most receptive to us. I mean, if you're going to ask me who's the most criminal, who's the most nefarious, who's the most violent, at that time, the Pagans. They're very old school 70-ish bikers. They don't care about appearance, they care about action. The Pagans and the Hells Angels hate each other. They were having an event down in Butler, Pennsylvania. I said, let's go check it out. So we hop on our bikes and, you know, we put our guns in our bags just in case we got stopped because there are going to be a lot of police presence there. So we pull in. As soon as we get off our bikes, there's two Pagans. They go, you got to go report in. Well, at that point, then I tell the guys, make sure you strap up and got your guns on you. And then one guy goes, are you in charge? You guys really need to come down the hill and check in with us. So you come over this hill and it's about a 100-yard drop to the base of this hill. And there's tents and there's probably 80, 90 Pagans there. And we're walking down this hill, and I'm looking at Ivan and Freddie, the ATF agents. I go, if this stuff breaks bad, just shoot everybody that's not wearing our patch, and we're getting the hell out of here. So we go down to the bottom of this hill, right? And there's tents. So we walk in. So there's some other club members, presidents, and you know, some of their sergeant at arms are sitting there. And then they start asking us questions about who we are. All right, what's your affiliation with the Hells Angels? None. We don't have one. Same with you. We don't affiliate with anybody. We're Switzerland. I go, we're not picking sides. Whatever Ivan was saying, Dan Oswald, like he was like 5 feet away from me. So they would ask him a question, I'd listen to his answer, and then I would just pretty much pair mine with his. Based on that happening there, that's when Dan and some of the other guys start buying dope from some of their members where they kind of open up and like us. Well, the Pagans are the same as the Pagans have always been. You know, their business operation, they do a lot of drugs, they do a lot of extortion. Our business with them was going to be drugs and guns. So, and we knew just by the intelligence that we had, you know, they're really thick as Steve. At one point in time, Pittsburgh was a power base for the Pagans, Fairmont, West Virginia, all the way up through, and then you started moving east towards Philadelphia. So our hope is we were going to work our way into their heavy hitters and start that spider web of getting into their network of drugs. You know, we were prematurely shut down, but we were on the way. So as our case was progressing, you know, and we were still having some issues with the Hells Angels. It was in the wintertime. It was around Christmas, right after Christmas. I get a call from Lake East Hells Angels, and he says, hey, Junkyard, I need to meet you. And I go, is everything okay? He goes, yeah, I just need to meet you. He goes, let's meet at the McDonald's at 540 and 90, or whatever it is. I go, okay. He was one of the more influential Hells Angels in that chapter. So I tell the two guys, there's two other guys at the house, and my feeling, something's off. I tell them, I go, follow me up, but go sit across the street, post up and watch. So we go out to get in his car, and he looks at me and he goes, take a look at this. And he hands me a white letter, an envelope that's addressed to the Hells Angels. So I open up the letter and I'm looking at it, and there's a picture of two ATF agents who did a Warlock case, Jeff Graman and Darren Kozlowski. And they have Jeff Graman correctly identified, whoever sent this to them, as being in the order of blood, and they have one of the other members misidentified as Darren Kozlowski. And he goes, do you recognize those guys? I go, nope, never seen them before in my life. He goes, we've been looking at these for a couple of weeks, and we're pretty convinced those aren't your guys. He goes, on the other side, he goes, we think somebody may be trying to infiltrate you guys. I go, okay, are we good? He goes, yeah, we're good. I go, all right, I appreciate the information. He let me take the letter and everything. So I go back to the house, our house that, you know, that we stayed in, and I'm meeting with the other two guys, and I go, well, Okay, so we could tell ATF about this. So I pick up the phone and I'm trying to explain to my boss what's going on, and he's asking questions and he goes, do you think it's safe? It is, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, it was safe. Well, so some time went by, everything kind of smoothed out. Then we went to a wedding for Lucky, who was a Pagan member out of Youngstown. I go back into the office on Monday and I get a call from my boss. And he's like, we're shutting it down. I go, dude, we just got over the major hurdle of us getting to where we need to be. This is 2 years of work. The case was growing too big and they felt like they were losing control over it. Instead of dedicating more people to help us do it, they were like, well, we're not, and it wasn't like we were overspending in funding. You know, all those cases cost a lot of money. There's never been a time in ATF, only one, maybe two that I could think of, where our infiltrations have gone from start to fruition where we couldn't go anymore. And that's the Mongol case, and that would have been the last Outlaw case, where they actually took out all the national hierarchy and did their thing. All of these cases tend to be shut down prematurely because management doesn't want to assume any more risk. They've had enough of it. They don't, you know, they're tired of the case. It was successful, but we look at it and go, man, it could have been so much more, just so much more. Well, I think we ended up getting probably 30 patch holders that include Aryan Brotherhood members and other people that were involved criminally in other things. David was out of prison maybe a whole 2.5 years before we put him back in. He got 15 years. JB actually died. He had heart problems. AJ went back to the pen. AJ was in for, you know, like 8 years. The only guy that we got to see after was AJ. When they arrested him, all of us walked in, and there he goes, all of you? We're like, yep. He goes, God, you know, some guys get pissed. Some guys, it's part of the game, and they understand it's the game they play. You know, it's not to say you form bonds with those guys. You're with them so much, they would not have a problem laying their life down for you, potentially, or at least fighting for you, you know, standing, having your back, not letting something happen to you. And then you got the end result, right? You spend all this time with guys and you know it's coming down. They have no idea they're living their normal life. You know, all these dudes are going to be taken out and their life's going to change significantly. But you sit there and you do get attached. Well, Youngstown, to me, it's I would not want to grow up anywhere else. When I was growing up, back in basically the 70s and the 80s there, I'm Italian Catholic. It's a town that was steeped in criminality. Based on the people that I was exposed to and hung around, you kind of understood how the criminal nature worked. And you either thrived and survived in that, or you didn't. Got my degree at Youngstown State University in criminal justice and started applying for jobs. And my dad, who was still on the job at the time, Youngstown Police Department, he said, hey, he goes, have you considered ATF? And ATF, they would have these mass hiring spurts, and in the late 80s, early 90s, this is when crack had just come into the United States and it was out of control. That's where they were hiring people, for mostly to combat armed violent crime. It's a lot of it relating to narcotics, okay? So I played sports all my life, you know, and there has to be a challenge. You know, you want to win. It was the excitement, the adrenaline rush. So we learned about explosives, we learned about arson, you learned about, you know, firearms violate, the Gun Control Act. It was everything all inclusive. And then we had tactics. And then there was one block that was field operations. So this is getting towards the end of the academy. So field operations was a culmination of everything that you're going to do out in the field. And I still think today, ATF's one of those few agencies you do not have to have a college degree to get a job, where most others you must. Well, when I got hired on, we had a lot of guys that were like, I came straight out of college at 24. ATF, for lack of using a better term, was more of a blue collar agency back then, where if you had a car, it was a piece of junk. And then you go to the academy today and you got people coming in Mercedes, BMWs, because they've had careers and they're coming in later. And then you hear people all the time, why would I want to do that? Why do I want to work that hard or put myself at risk? That was never even a consideration when I came on. and with the guys that I grew up around. I mean, that was part of it. The skill set that I think I had, like anybody that was successful in coming into undercover, is your life experience growing up. Now, I will tell you, growing up in Youngstown, you're exposed to a lot of people. You know how to talk to people. You know how to befriend people. You know how to get close to people. The skill set that I think every one of my buddies has, and we always talk about, is called the gift of gab. You could sell yourself. I mean, you could twist stuff, you could redirect stuff. Well, undercover is not good for everybody. It's not for everybody because not everybody's a good liar, right? Does that make you a bad person? No. What it means is that you just can't lie. Because, you know, now kids, they sit on the computers and they play avatars and they can be everything they want without consequence. Well, when we were playing, you were actually trying to convince the person that you were a cowboy or that you were an Indian or that you're a cop or a robber, right? And this is how you got good at talking to people and interacting with people in our generation. When I first got into my first case, I had this informant. He had ties into all these black criminal organizations, and then he had ties to the motorcycle clubs, this club called the Road Saints. Biker clubhouses are different depending on the club. You only get into a clubhouse a few certain ways, but you got to know somebody to get in. Two, what they now term as an official hang-around, which means you're a friend of the club. And then the other ways is if you're, you know, prospect, probate, or an actual member. So I borrow a motorcycle, and we're going to go to an event at the Road Saints Clubhouse. Now, there's no coordination. You don't tell anybody what you're doing just because you don't want anybody to know. It's a need to know because it's too small. Most clubs, if you go into their clubhouse, they want you to turn your guns over to them. They'll lock them in a safe, and you get them when you leave. You know, conduct is you're going to talk to people, but it's always with respect. You know, never disrespect the patch. Don't have a bar. They say we take donations. Well, you know, they'll stay up all night. There's generally some type of drugs flowing through there, whether it's coke, meth, you know, some are pill poppers with the pain pills and stuff like that. It's not easy by any means that you're just going to walk in there and they're going to say, hey, welcome. I ride in to this clubhouse by myself. The informant's there, and I'm there about an hour. And I'm meeting people. I'm going, man, this is going great. And about an hour later, the Columbus Police Department shows up with alcohol liquor enforcement, and they're raiding the clubhouse. I've got 2 guns on me, and I'm going, I'm going to go to jail, and I've only been down this road about 2 hours, right? Because I didn't know that was going to happen. So I took my guns off, and I pitched them under the front porch of this old house. They gathered everybody up. They patted them down. They closed it because they were running an illegal bar. They arrested a couple people that had outside warrants, right? So everybody skedaddles out of there. So the next day I go up to this bar on the west side of Columbus, and I'm sitting in there. And in comes a couple Road Saints with a couple Avengers. And they say, hey, we need to talk to you outside. They grab me outside, and the one shoves a gun right under my neck. And he goes, who the f are you? And I go, what do you mean, who am I? And I go, you guys know who I am. They go, no. You show up, you're the only new face in the crowd, and then the police come, and they raid their club. This was an Avenger talking to me. And they raid their clubhouse. I go, I got invited by this guy. I showed up. I don't know anything about that. And then they start throwing out, are you with BCI, which is the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation? I go, I don't even know who that is. So this went on for about 15 minutes, what seemed like a year. They had me pinned up against this back wall. And eventually I was able to BS them enough to where they seemed satisfied. And then everything kind of leveled out. And I went back in, finished my beer, and I left. You talk to the psychologists we have, they go, every time like you end a case like that and your cover, you know, identity, it's like you die. So you're going through the whole process of grieving the death of yourself, because now you're going to take me out of this life of outlaw bikers and criminals and all this and what I'm doing every day, and now you want to put me back in a cubicle working regular stuff. So there is some assimilating back into that. But I will say in ATF we're unique because of the guys that have done these cases over the years. Our wives have been through all of it, and they stood by it. So now, now that all that's done and I'm still doing some contracting work, and you know, now that I'm in business with my daughter, it's great. People often ask, was it worth it? Yes, It was to me, because you see the end result. You know, you talk to the families that are affected, and even the families of the people that you put in prison. Sometimes their life gets better. So you know that while those people are in prison, they're not going to be able to terrorize or victimize other people. You know, you're doing good. I mean, you're trying to make the communities as a whole better. Now, a lot of people think, you work undercover, you guys are rats, you're no good, you're this or that. Well, okay, that's your opinion. It's not going to stop it from happening. I mean, you know what that means? We were good at what we did. And what really pisses people off is that we were able to get over on you. That's what pisses people off, that they couldn't smell us. They couldn't get us out. They couldn't figure out how to stay out of prison. It's the game. Don't, as they say, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Hi, I'm a producer on How Crime Works. If you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe and comment below with more ideas of topics you'd like us to cover in this series.